Humans of the cardboard. Today we are going through Duelist Nexus and talking about how good this set really is. We are about to get Cyberstorm access in the TCG. About 3 months later, we will get the drop of Duelist Nexus. So we're in a good point in the game. But I made a video a couple weeks ago talking about Duelist Nexus and how I wasn't super impressed with how the set was shaping up. But to be fair, I made that video with 35-ish cards left to still be revealed. We've gotten those cards since then, and so today I want to talk about the full scope of the set. And keep in mind, I'm talking competitive relevant stuff here. Just for the sake of this channel, we like to focus more on the competitive side of things and how it will affect the metagame, not necessarily value and, collector standpoint, but more so what can actually affect the metagame. So here we go. Let's start off with different sections here. We might as well start with the generic cards first, because those cards are going to apply to more stuff. And generally, as far as making a set good, something that makes a set very desirable is that having cards that like any competitive player might want. And those are just really high impact, just like generic cards. Think about triple tactics, talents, stuff like that. Chaos Angel from Cyberstorm Access is a good example. Very accessible card for a lot of different decks. Unfortunately, this deck doesn't have, or this set doesn't really have a big bomb generic card like that. We start with Revolution Synchron. It's a really cool generic extender that allows you to essentially do like the Code Talker monsters from the main deck that can synchro or that can link summon from hand. This guy can actually synchro from hand. You just have to make sure you're summoning a level 7 or 8 dragon synchro. Now there is a decent amount of level 7 or 8 dragons in that pool, so that's not bad. He can also reborn himself as long as you control a level 7 or higher synchro monster. So he becomes a level 1 at that point, so he does allow you to synchro climb, which is very good. It's just a good card. I could see him coming up. I could see him coming up in certain builds like Ancient Fairy Dragon based decks, like Field Spell based decks. He could definitely be good for that. I definitely think there's room for this card. This is a very good extender that'll come up for a handful of different decks. From there, you have Click and Echo. This card actually got revealed with the final filler cards of the set. This card seems crazy. I made a whole video talking about it. The fact that there are a couple of specific decks that can access it because of its stats. It's a Sea Serpent. It's level 2. Those being the main things. He actually can be insanely good for certain decks. He gives you hand knowledge. He's pretty broken for decks that don't need their normal summon or either the strategies that can really just take advantage of accessing him very easily, for sure. Hita the Fire Channeler. This is pretty much a fire searcher for any fire deck that's very heavy on fire cards, and even more particularly like having their cards sent to graveyard. So I guess I'm more so looking at Salamangrates and Volcanics more than anything, but if we ever get fire decks down the line that are very graveyard based, this could be a nice card for those. But it is a -1, so just take that for what it is. From here, we have the Fusion Reinforcement. This card is very interesting to me. It reveals a fusion monster in your extra deck, then you can special summon a fusion material listed on it from your extra deck or graveyard. It does negate its effects, so you got to keep that in mind. But it does just kind of summon a monster out. So it's very cool. It does have some really big potential. I don't know if there are any amazing targets right out the gate right this second, but it is a card to definitely keep an eye on. This could be something to stock up on before it becomes crazy in a future format, for sure. And the last generic card I think that really comes out here that's worth noting is Little Opposition. This card's pretty cool. It's a trap card that summons any level 2 or lower monster from your deck, essentially, but then your opponent gets to do the same thing. But there are a couple of really powerful generic options, or depending on your deck, engine options that you could cheat out on the opponent's turn. Cheat's not even the right word, but just turbo out on the opponent's turn, and that's pretty nice. This card probably wouldn't be able to exist in a format that expects it coming, but it could be a card that comes in and out of certain formats when people aren't ready for it. So keep an eye on that. So that's it for the generic cards. Nothing crazy. I mean, this is pretty underwhelming to me overall, I would say. None of these cards are really big impact. Like I said, Chaos Angels and Cyberstorm Access. The set before that, Photon Hypernova. We got Triple Tactics Tasking, which I understand hasn't been a super huge part of the metagame, but it is a card you read and you're this is going to come up. This is going to be a part of the game at some point. And there's nothing here that I'm as confident in as those cards. It's kind of a bummer. So in that section, I would say underwhelming. They're just not great. From there, we move to a bunch of legacy support. There's only really 1 or 2 new archetypes here, but let's talk about the legacy support. I kind of put them in order of how impactful I think they might be. It's a loose order, so don't take that too seriously, but first, starting off, we get 2 new Pirelli cards, like we fucking needed them. We didn't. The deck's already the best deck in the OCG. They get 2, by the way, really good cards, especially the Exceed, and a new trap card doesn't hurt either. They now can access their trap cards super easily and freely, which is terrifying, and they get extra removal to help bait stuff before they go into Zeus lines. This deck is a menace. I mean, I'll just say it. It's really crazy. From there, move to some Visa Starfrost support. A lot of this stuff, they actually got a handful of cards. A lot of it was like unusable. Or just not great, honestly not making them better. But the one card I do think is quite good is Visas Amritara. It takes any tuner plus a light monster, and pretty much on summon it searches a Visa Starfrost spell or trap card, which is quite good. There's a handful of really good stuff, and because it's any spell or trap that lists Visas, I believe that's any of the field spells for like the Visa Starfrost lore. So like the Kashtira field spell, the Scareclaw field spell, the Tearlament field spell, and now Monodome. So it does let you access just really any of those, which is quite good. Or there are even a handful of other cards that are pretty decent as well. Some back row cards and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely a really powerful card that's going to be pretty generically accessible. That's going to get you access to some of these other engines. This card could definitely come up in a really interesting synchro build. Moving on from there, Runic. They get Runic Sleipnir, the main. Really cool card. It makes any of even the like lesser good Runic spells actually have way more utility, because this card going second actually does help you bait interruptions, clear monsters off your opponent's board. It's quite good. It's a really good monster. It's also level 9, so that could actually come up to, sometimes Runics are abused as just level extenders, getting you the right level on the field at certain times. So that could definitely come up as well. Any deck that plays like level 1 tuners, think about like Veiler. If you just play Veiler in your deck with Runics, Runic summon out Runic main, normal Veiler, Baron de Fleur. I mean, like, there's worse. There's worse stuff out there. So very cool. It's the only card for them. I do think they'll get a hit before then, probably some way, shape, or form, but this card is still really cool for them. Next up, we get Charlemagne, and really just a whole wave of Infernoble cards that are really, really good. We haven't seen the first results from the new OCG format, but the only thing there is they have Max C. So Max C is much more of a menace to them than like obviously anything we really have, because the deck actually handles Nibiru and stuff like that decently well. They have a lot of combos that insulate them from that. So that'd be really the main concern, is that it's like, even if it doesn't perform that well in the OCG, it could still be pretty good in the TCG. But their support's really good. I would not be surprised if Infernoble Knight is like back in top tier competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. I really wouldn't. Next up, Altergeist support. They get, I think, 4 new cards. They're very interesting. They turn the deck into much more of like a mid-range, almost more combo-y strategy, which is really interesting. They have some really cool setups that are quite strong, but they're all 2-card combos. They don't have a ton of 1-card combos that are really that potent. So I'm curious to see where they go. Hopefully they're good enough and they're not like super weak to interruption and stuff, but we'll have to see. But very cool. Very interesting support. Monodium gets a new extender card here, a new tuner in the form of Monodium Trid. Very interesting card. It just gives them another one of these crazy extenders that gives you another summon from deck when it's destroyed. It just helps them extend. It raises the ceiling of their deck. So it's a cool card. Love the artwork on it. And then we get to the new stuff. So Illusionist is a new type, and that does add a little bit of intrigue to this new set. I don't think this archetype is really good enough just yet to really do anything, but it is worth noting that it is cool that it's going to start up here. It does make the set more interesting, for sure. And it's important to note that, like, even when Cyburst came out, the last new, like, type of monster in the game, it didn't take off for a while. It needed a couple of sets to build up enough cards for them to be able to, like, actually build coherent strategies. And so that could be the same thing here. If we get 5 to 10 new Illusionist monsters every single core set, eventually we'll build up to something that actually can make some noise, most likely. So I'll keep an eye on it for that. But as far as this set goes, it's not enough. And that goes for the the Phantom Beast mini archetype here as well. It's a cool, like, little fusion engine. It has some cool payoffs, but it's not enough yet. It's just outclassed by Branded. It's outclassed by other fusion strategies. It's just okay for right now. Moving on. Unchained gets actually 3 new cards. They're actually quite nice. Unchained could be a really fun rogue strategy going forward. Keep an eye on them. Rescue Ace gets 2 new cards. I might make a video very soon going more in depth about how really nicely the 2 new cards will impact this archetype. This archetype felt like it had a lot of cool pieces, but it wasn't all cohesive enough. These 2 pieces really do help a lot. They really do. They actually make for 1 card plays now in the deck, as well as some other factors as well. The grindability, extra interruption, aside from just resolve, the big guy turbulence, or kind of just struggle. So that's really cool. There's definitely some really nice stuff here, for sure. These cards are really nice. Dark Corridor. This card's crazy. It adds any Dark World monster from deck to hand, then pitches a card. That's really good because it'll trigger any Dark World card, so that's really important to note. I think it's interesting to note that like this could potentially make Dark World a splashable generic engine, potentially, but also just could be a nice card for Dark World decks pure anyway. You may not be a 3 of because it's hard once per turn, but it is still a really good card for them. Next up, King Rex, the Twin-Headed Dragon. I threw these on here at the last second. This is kind of like a fringe add-on here. I don't think this is that really relevant, but it is important to note dinosaurs just have so many good cards. They don't feel like they need a bunch, and since they could get this stuff alongside the Transcendrakes pretty close at a similar time, that it could be enough to just give dinosaurs a nice little push, and that could be enough just because they have so many good cards already. I don't know. It's worth mentioning. I don't think this board is that good, but it's something. The new Drytron card. I mean, as much as Drytron like really struggles in just like any format where like Bestials could be anywhere, and like a Rise Heart's a thing, they just like can't play at all. We do still acknowledge that like if those things are not present in the current metagame, that like Drytron could actually be like a legit deck. And this card is just another nice extender for them. It also helps Ursarctic, but I'm not sure it helps them enough. But for Drytron, it's a very interesting card. It summons itself very easily, and then also adds another Drytron Speller Trap, so it's just a +1 in that regard. I think it's a good card. I don't know what the best way for them to utilize it is, but it is an interesting card for them. And the last card we'll throw out there, again, I'm not sure this will have any impact on the competitive scene, but Nemorelia does get a nice little addition to their engine. They do get a Book of Moon added to their interruption capabilities here. It's not great. It doesn't feel like it's enough to really make the engine worth it, but the engine is still very interesting. They have, it's fairly condensed. You could play it on, like in conjunction with other stuff. They do have the ability to just spam out like multiple big monsters that are just annoying to have to deal with, but I'm still not convinced it's enough overall to really make it work. But yeah, that's everything I have here as far as like relevant stuff, and to me it's just not really enough. There's only one new archetype here, if you want to call the Chimera Phantom Beast archetype like a brand new archetype, and Illusionist you could call their own archetype as well. They're just not doing anything out of this set. They're going to need multiple sets down the line to really be able to do anything. And other than that, there's a lot of, there's a couple of things that could be high-end competitive. I do think if Noble Knights have a chance to be there, if Runics are still really popular, Main just helps them with a lot of utility, which is great. This guy could come up in a couple of new strategies. Pirelli gets even better. And then I would say like Revolution Synchron has the potential to be part of a like really high-end strategy. But other than that, like I don't see a ton of stuff. It's mostly rogue stuff overall. I'm just not overly impressed here. I thought for a set that would be the first set of a new series, for the third set of the year, which normally ends up being the most impactful. Last year we got Power of the Elements, one of the most impactful core sets we've had in years. A little bit of a letdown to me, to be honest. And maybe I just had unrealistic expectations, but it does still feel like, relatively speaking, it's a little bit underwhelming for the competitive scene. But those are just my opinions. I want to know what you guys think. I really do, because, am I being too harsh on the set? Am I being a negative Nancy? Like, please let me know in the comment section down below where you land on this set. How does it really ring for you if you're a more competitive oriented player? If you're just a player that, even if you're not focused on playing any of the stuff from this set, I could see sets where I don't even like really want to play anything, but I'm still just excited because it's going to add new stuff, exciting, different stuff that I get to play against and just in the format as a whole. I just don't feel it as much right now. And maybe we need to see some results from the OCG. Maybe some of these cards and support will perform better than I give it credit for. But obviously, we'll see that when we see it, you know. And until then, I'm just underwhelmed. So that's it for me here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. You know, sorry if it's a little bit of a downer video, but that's just it's just my feelings on it. I don't want to lie to you guys, just to try and feel more positive. But it's just where I'm at. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bruce.